Okay, the last section of chapter 2 we need to cover is all about acids and bases. So the first thing I want to show you is the pH scale. Actually, this one doesn't show up, but it usually goes from 0 to 14. This one starts at 1. But anyway, how you read the pH scale. Usually you start right in the middle at 7. And 7 is neutral. And then you work your way either to the left or to the right. But let's first focus on what the pH scale actually means. You see here is written a lowercase p and a capital H. So what that actually stands for is the potential of hydrogen. So you don't capitalize the P because it actually is a word, and the H actually stands for hydrogen on the periodic table, so of course you have to capitalize it. So the potential of hydrogen is going to be very important in just a minute. Okay, so it's a little bumpy. I'm in the car. I'm not driving, so sorry about that. Uh, okay, so when you read the pH scale, you start at 7, which is neutral, and let's say if we want to go towards the acids, you get stronger as you move away from neutral. Neutral is 0, it's nothing. So as you move down, this is a logarithmic scale, which means as you move from a 7 to a 6, it looks like it's just one number difference, but it's actually times 10. Okay, so it's actually really strong. A 6 is 10 times stronger than a 7. So every time you move down, you have to multiply, not add. You have to multiply times 10. So a 5 is 10 times 10, the strength. So it's 100 times stronger than 7. How much stronger is a 5 than a 6? Well, it's only one number down, so it's just 10. So it's 10 times stronger than a 6, but 100 times stronger than a 7. And that works the same way up here with the bases. If you start at 7, neutral, you start at 0, an 8 is 10 times stronger. A 9 then is 100 times stronger. A 10, 1,000 times stronger. And you just keep working your way up. 10,000, 100,000, okay? And you work your way up, going back again, to multiplying by 10 every time you move away from 7. So how much stronger is a 12 than a 10? Hopefully you said 100 times, because there's only two numbers difference. Every time you move, it's times 10. Okay, so what makes something an acid? What makes something a base? That's what we want to concentrate on now. All right, so this slide shows, it says some compounds form acids or bases. An acid releases a hydrogen ion when it dissolves in water. Because remember, pH scale is all about the hydrogen ions. How many hydrogen ions are there? Okay, so if you look at the picture here, as we move towards the acids, this is the strongest acid you can get down here at a 0. And stomach acid is anywhere is around 1, 2. Sulfuric acid is a 2. Hydrochloric, we're all down here, the very strongest acids you can get. And so we call an acid is a proton donor. If it donates a hydrogen, so in other words, it's going to release the hydrogen ion when it is dissolved in water. So if you look at an acid in water, you're going to see a bunch of hydrogen ions floating around because they were released. So that's how you know you have an acid when you test it, with the pH test paper, and it comes out being red. That means it was showing a lot of hydrogens, which means the acid gave them up as soon as it hit water. Okay, so acids will give up hydrogens, and you're going to see a bunch of hydrogens in the water. You go to the next slide, you see these are bases. How you know you've got a base? There's not going to be a lot of hydrogens in the water because it says here a base removes hydrogen ions from a solution. So they're just like gobbling them up. And so you're not going to see many left over. They're accepting them. So I was trying to come up with a study strategy for you to remember that acids are donors and bases are acceptors. And this is the only thing I can come up with right now. As you see, the word acid has a D on the end, standing for donor. So acids are donors. A base, look, it has an A and an E and an A and an E, separated by a, well, this one kind of has an S sound, and this one, of course, is an S sound. So kind of makes the same letters here and the same letters here. So a base is an acceptor, acid is a donor. All right, so let's try to answer this question down here. Of course, this is in the way. Let's get rid of that. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, here's the question. Summarize. Describe the relationship between hydrogen concentration and the pH value. So if you're a strong base, you're up here with a pH value of 14. It's the strongest base you can get. What does that have to do with the concentration of hydrogens in the actual liquid? If you look here, the higher the number of pH, the lower the hydrogens. So it's inversely related. It's just the opposite. And if we go back, the higher number of hydrogens in the liquid, the lower number of pH. So it's inversely related, pH number and hydrogen concentration. If we just go back one more slide, I like this one so you can just kind of see some types of liquids that are out there and how strong they are of an acid or a base. Again, like your stomach acid down here at 1, a little crazy. It's not showing it, but soda is usually around 4 right here. And then, bleach is a really strong base and so forth. Okay, let's look. Oh, this ought to help. So acids, in this picture, they're always wanting to give up their hydrogens, and a base, they're always willing to accept. So they can play catch and give one of these up to the other. And the last one is about a buffer. The job of a buffer is to protect against changes in pH. They are compounds that can bind to a hydrogen ion when the hydrogen concentration increases, or they can release a hydrogen ion when the concentration decreases. So they're really good at playing this catch game. It says buffers help maintain homeostasis, trying to keep the home stable there, the relatively constant conditions. A great example of a buffer would be an antacid. You've got heartburn, you've got acid coming up into your esophagus, and it feels like you got heartburn. Then what do? You take a Tums or a Rolaids, which is an antacid. Okay, so it's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. It's going to be a little bit of a base to try to counteract the acid. Okay, so that would be considered a buffer. I'm going to counteract and try to get it back in balance again. Lime is a great buffer. If the pH is too high in water, they will put lime, or if the pH is too high in a field, they put lime on a field because lime is a base, counteracts the acid, so it's buffering it out. Okay, that ends our lecture on Chapter 2, and we'll get going on Chapter 3 in another video. Make sure you do take some of those notes. Make sure you know the difference between an acid and base. I would probably write down also, remember I told you that pH stands for potential of hydrogen, and that it is a logarithmic scale, which means you always multiply by 10. So make sure you put that in your notes as well.